Joshua Smith here, and welcome to the GSD Mode Podcast. Now get shit done and smash that subscribe button now. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast interview. Every single week, I interview top real estate professionals, top entrepreneurs, and straight up top badasses that are dominating their space. And today, you guys, we got another rock star guest here on the podcast. Our guest today, you guys, Brittany Pino. So she's been in the real estate industry for over 18 years now. She jumped in at an early age of the age of 20 and has just been on this a 2-decade journey of crushing it at a massive level. So she quickly built up to running and operating the number one team in Louisiana with the number one franchise in the area and in the country as well. And then after 7 years of going down that path and that journey, decided to pivot and make a transition of going back to an individual agent, which we'll get into, all the reasons as to why and what that shift looked like. But to now where as an individual agent, she is outselling most mega teams, not just in her area, but also throughout the country, doing $1 million plus a year as an individual agent in gross volume sales, and being able to do this all also as a single mom. So really stoked and honored to have Brittany on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, man. It's what's cool about this is not only have you had a lot of success, throughout this journey, but you've seen a lot as well. So if you start looking at 18 years in the business, it's you've been able to grow, survive, and thrive during the Great Recession and through all the different ups and downs of the market, booms, busts, and continue to go out there and reinvent yourself. And because I got in the business around a similar time. I think I get 2005, so maybe a year or two behind you. But it was like, so reflecting back, it's like, man, we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have DocuSign, we didn't, things were just, it's evolved so much. And I always just love, picking the brains of those that have been in the business and have been able to continue to reinvent themselves and adapt and continue to thrive, regardless of all the changes. And before we get into, all the amazing things that you're up to today, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys of what led them here in the first place. So if you wind the clocks, at the age of 20, why real estate? How this journey began in the first place?
Yeah. So I was in college, trying to figure out what I was going to do and trying to pick a major. And there were so many things that I wanted. Like I wanted to be like entrepreneur and I wanted marketing, but I wanted legal, but I was really good in sales. And there were so many, even PR. And so I actually kind of went on I don't want to call it a vacation, but I moved away for a short stint and I found myself in the kitchen of a really good friend's, her family was there. And so I was talking with her brother-in-law and he was like, have you ever thought about real estate? Here I am. I think at the time I was probably maybe 19. I was like, real estate, what is that? So he started to tell me about it and I started to do a lot of research and realized that really it was like all the different things there's so many different hats that you wear when you're, in real estate. And so I'm like, wow, this could potentially be the it for me. Entrepreneur, I have, business and I'm in marketing, but I'm in sales, but there's so many things. And so it was an aha moment for me. I just felt like, hey, I think I'm meant to do this. So I jumped in, I came back home from that trip and I went right at it to get my license and just, started from hard knocks. Like I had nobody to pave the way here. I don't even think teams weren't even like a thing, like a buyer's agent. It was just, I was so young and, but I just felt like it was going to be a really good fit for me. And I think I made a good decision. Yeah,
it's 100%. It's paid off. So, a couple of things there. So you jump in, and there's really two things I want to hit on this of, and we'll get into. Well, first of all, we'll talk about what you did initially, because those first year, 2-3 years. We all know the statistics that 90% end up dropping out in the first 3 years, and it's difficult because as you mentioned, you got to wear all these hats, and just like I guess all school, wherever you go to get a license or degree from, they prep you for maybe how to understand the things that you need to understand for the craft of like writing contracts or whatever, or you go to business school, but they don't teach you how to make money in business. They might teach you, right. And then from there to follow that up, I want to talk about the age, thing of, it can be tough when, you're so young, you don't have the life experiences yet, and not from an internal perspective, but from the general public of, having that trust and faith in, you versus the average realtor that might be, 50 some years old, right? The first part, if we go into that first year or two, because look, in order to create what you've created, you first had to last. You couldn't become a statistic. So, what was that first year or so like that allowed you to get that momentum to be able to stay, and thrive in the business?
So back then I did find a mentor. He and I are actually still friends to this day, but he kind of helped me with the, calling for sell by owners and all of that. But again, I found it really challenging. Just like you said, like you hit the nail on the head. It was very hard as, a 20-year-old to really get some momentum in the business. And so as I was doing this, I was working with people who I knew, right? Somebody just wanted to throw me a bone. It was like a friend's mom or, something like that. They're working with me. But I mean, yes, if I would have kept that way, I probably would have starved. But one of them approached me and a friend's mom and was like, have you heard about Pelican Point? This is like a golf course community. And the developer hires agents to work on site and pays them a salary. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. So I actually did reach out, submitted my resume, and I got hired to on-site sales. So I was a salaried agent for the first then a couple years in my business. And I learned so much from that job. I mean, it was like real estate boot camp. I was there 6 days a week. I was working more than my fair share of hours. It was more than 40 hours a week, but we were doing everything from new construction, relocations, new, like the whole custom build, and then as spec homes, we were in creative homes. I mean, I literally had so much experience. Like that was like 10 years of experience just slammed into like a 2-year term. Rode around with the developer one-on-one, and he's like, who are your next 5 purchase agreements? Who is, and he's like drilling you, like people have big changes in their life. Every 2 years, people go through a major change. So even though the average is like 5 to 7 years to resell, people may be going through something, whether they get a new job or they have a baby or they lose a job or they're empty nesters or there's a marriage or a death. I mean, there's so many things, right, that can happen. And so every 2 years, people are going through this. And so it was just keeping in touch with the people who had visited the community and all that. So just those little pieces, those tactics, that foundational type thing, that I learned there. After a couple of years there on a salary, I was like, okay, I'm ready to like fly. I want to do this. And so I left there and joined what I felt at the time was kind of like the ultimate best franchise that there was, in my eyes. And so I joined them, and I stayed with that franchise for 14 years. I did. I hit the ground running. I started my business when I left that on-site sales, and actually bought a house. I was 22 years old when I left there. And this was in 2005, and this was when they still did like stated doc loans and all that. And listen, I quit my job. I can't remember. I think it was 2 weeks before I closed. No VOE, no verification of employment, nothing. I closed and I have no job. Here I am. I'm getting a mortgage. I'm 22 years old. I'm buying a house. I don't have a job now. I'm leaving my real job. Now I'm going to go out and sell real estate, independent sales, right? And I remember showing the house to my dad. I didn't have any help or anything at the time. A lot of people get their parents to down payment or do the inspection. No, my parents didn't see it until after I closed, and my dad is leaving the driveway. And I'm like, okay, Dad. So I straight to the house, like, what do you think about it? He's like, what do I think? I don't think you can afford it. And then he like backed out, drove away. I was like, oh my God, like, tell me I can't do something. It's not that he wasn't supportive. He was just, he's old school. He's freaked out. So here I am, just a little risk taker. I'm like, I'm going to do this and make it happen. And so that was that urgency, I think, that I needed, that to just hit the ground running. And so I did. I really got my start in my business, independent sales, was calling for sell by owners. That was the very early days. Again, we didn't have the for sell by owner websites. There wasn't all the technology and stuff that we have these days. I literally was riding around, look for the little red and white signs that said for sell by owner, like all day long. I'm like driving through, and I picked up builders this way, a lot of new construction stuff. And, one sale would lead to another referral, and it just snowballed from there. So my first year, I did over 6 figures my very first year, 22 years old, independent sales.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. So, a couple follow-up questions there. You mentioned with the developer and Pelican. I can't remember the
Pelican Point.
Pelican Point, and the experience that you had from there. And look, it sounds like there was a lot of accountability. It set that great foundation for expectations, for busting your ass off, and so forth. But I also want to just pick your brain and see how that experience from the development side, right? Because you start learning more about when it comes to, the construction angle of it, meaning like our product at the end of the day is the physical real estate itself. I mean, yeah, we're selling our services, but our clients are buying and selling this physical product. And, what's always intrigued me not, I guess intrigued, but just, it's always on my mind of in this industry, it's like we spend so much time going out there and learning how to generate leads, and so forth. But there's very rarely do I ever hear anybody of like, oh, I'm going to go take these staging classes, or I'm going to go out there and, start taking appraisal classes or learn so I can go into a client and talk about, oh, hey, well, if you put this, these countertops in, you put this $5,000, I'll give you this $15,000 of a return of, most in our industry have very little knowledge base when it comes to the product itself and how to help our clients, once they become a client, get maximum dollar and have success throughout that. And I'm curious with going through that experience, how do you think how's that played a role in your success afterwards by having that deep knowledge base? Because I'm guessing you're learning staging, you're learning how these homes are built, why they're built. You're learning so many inner workings about the product itself.
Huge. And I would say it's been completely invaluable with just understanding. It has helped me now going into, now I'm not, on site sales anymore. I don't work for that one person, but we would visit the jobs at all stages of construction. And so I know like behind the walls, like how these things are going. I built my personal home as well. Like I subbed it out myself. And so that hands-on experience, when then you're getting into a transaction and something comes up on the inspection period, you understand the way that it's built. And I'm not saying I'm a professional, contractor by any stretch of the imagination, but I have enough knowledge to at least guide my clients to get the right answers. This has helped me hold deals together though, and I think that it's really important that we master our craft, right? The product that we sell, we need to know everything about it. And so, yeah, I mean, I never really thought of it in that way, but I do. I'm a consistent student of my product because, I work a lot with, over the years, I've worked with tons of buyers and there's home inspections. And so I am learning. I'm learning every one of those inspections. What does this mean? I'm asking the questions. You have to ask the right questions and understand it, do the research, get the answers from the contractors. I'm standing right there asking and trying to understand so that then I can have a conversation with my clients to advise them. And I mean, it has been that experience. I would say if anybody who's in real estate could figure out a way to learn so much about like the building process or the construction or working with inspectors or whatever it is, even if it's just like a shadowing, a schooling in that way, I think is tremendous because, as we're going through the process now, okay, here I am, fast forward, I'm 18 years in. Anytime I have something come up, I think that knowledge and that experience just the whole way through, not just that one little stint for 2 years, helps me navigate and guide my clients in the transaction and helps me work with the other agent and to keep the deals together in negotiations and all, right? And I have resources. I have stucco guys and painters and contractors and handymen and stagers. And over the years, like a window, you have foggy windows, I've got somebody for that. You need to fix, I have got somebody for that. And I understand it. And so I know how to fix the foggy window. It may not be where you have to rip the whole window out of the wall and spend thousands of dollars to get new windows. There's actually a guy who cuts out the glass and it's a warranted, product. And so if you don't know about this, then how can you talk your clients off the ledge, right? This is so scary for them. And so they think, especially the ones that don't have, I find the ones that don't have a huge budget, have a lot of money for down payment. They're barely putting their deposit down. They're trying to do 100% financing. They're trying to get the seller to pay all their closing costs. They got no money. So when an inspection comes back and it's like a list of stuff, that's the fastest way to kill a deal, right? If they don't understand it. And so if their agent understands it and can explain like, this is what this means, this is who we talk to, and at least get them in touch with the right person who can make them feel better about it. I think that's that many more deals I'm going to have for the year because I was able to hold them together because of the experience.
Yeah.
In that way.
No, powerful stuff. I love it. So then from there, all right, so you did that for 2 years. Then you pivoted into becoming, you were still a realtor the whole time. It was just new build, sales to going independent. So now no salary. It's just, sink or swim in this realm. How did you know you were ready? Like, for those that are maybe in that position that are working with a builder, or even maybe they have maybe a part-time job or full-time job and doing real estate part-time. Like, how did you know you were ready to make that decision and that shift to leave?
Well, at that point, and it's kind of a unique situation, right? But I was on salary. It was the competency level, understanding the process, understanding purchase agreements and the deal from transaction, from contract to close, the whole thing. Before when I was 20, I'm like, what is a purchase agreement? Like, I didn't know anything. And so once I really understood and had a ton of volume, I had closed with this company, I was like, a lot of the reasons why I got into real estate, I'm really not able to utilize, right? I'm now sitting behind a desk. I'm somebody's employee. I'm not able to work with friends and family who call me and say, I'm ready to buy a house. I'm like, well, I'm only on site here. Unless you're buying a house here, I can't help you. The marketing and controlling all of that, I sat in on those appointments and we gave feedback, but they had a marketing department. I mean, it was a huge operation there, a golf course community, resort style thing. And so I was literally just in sales. I was pigeonholed into doing that one thing. And I had done it so much, I was really almost on the verge of burnout. And so I just needed something new. I had that fire in me, and I'm like, I can do this. I'm going to go out, I'm going to make this happen. And I would look at other people, I'm like, if they can do it, I know I can do it. Like, what you're capable of. So it's just, I think it's a matter of having that grit, that determination. Like, I will not stop. You can't stop me. So it was just getting out there and knowing, and I had a little bit of savings at that point. I had planned to take the jump. And so I just did, make it work. You got to make it work. Sink or swim. Got to.
I love it. So then, have you always been, had grit, had perseverance, had been driven, or was there a point in where something triggered and, that kind of that, beast kind of got awoken within, or is that just kind of maybe how you're wired?
So, I think that everybody is born with that, just that deep down survival mode, right? There's something inside of us that all wants to, it's that just thrive. You've got to thrive. And so, yes, we've all been born with it. However, I have exercised my resiliency. I have exercised that grit and that fire. And that's happened by huge life experiences, big life interruptions. So I was in, real estate sales in that independent where we started. We talked about the first couple of years, and then I go into independent. And then so from about 05, and I'm going to skip over a little bit. From 05 to 2015, I was in independent sales. In 2015, I went through a horrific divorce. Okay. I essentially became single mom full-time overnight. I had bills. I had a big house that I had to pay for, and I have 2 little babies. There were 3 and 1. Hit me so hard. I'm talking like to my knees, dropped me. And so I think that there's something that happens, right? I'm not the same person, I can tell you today, that I was before that happened. When you get knocked down, when big life interruptions happen, and you're forced to grow and go through this whole process, that I think is really where you find your true superpower. You can dust yourself off and get back up and work through it. I think you come out on the other end that much stronger. You learn a lot about yourself. I did. I learned a lot about myself. So is that really where I really realized how gritty I was? Sure. Before it's like, it was easier. Sure, I had it. It was fun. It was a fire, a desire, to thrive and grow, which I think everybody has, but it's not until you're really tested that you find out what you're made of.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so, pain and power come from the same place. And man, it's so painful going through it, and we all go through different pains. I've experienced the pains that you've experienced. But I don't know anybody that is, whether it's real estate or not, that's created big success in their life that hasn't been through insane personal shitstorms, right? It's like God doesn't reserve problems and pain for just a select few of individuals. Like, we all go through them, but some people choose to not continue to persevere and let those experience become those great teachers, right? They might just give up, check out mentally and so forth. And, it's the one commonality I see, and again, mega successful people, regardless of the niche or the craft, is they are willing to push through that pain, never give up, have that grit, like you said. But there is a different perspective that they're operating through that, where most people, because most people do everything they can to avoid pain. And I get that, component as well. But in order to, you had to let those experiences allow you to metamorphosize. If we, think of a butterfly cat, you became Brittany 2.0, right? And so forth. What kept you pushing through those time frames? Because I can't even fathom, like what you said you went through in 2015. The world instantly changes overnight. And what kept you pushing instead of like a lot of people that just, it's like a piece of coal, right? It's like pressure's applied and two things are going to happen. Either it crumbles or it handles the pressure well and it becomes a badass diamond. You chose to become the diamond where a lot of other people crumble, for those that are also going through their own problems, like what allowed you to keep pushing through, so you could experience the changes and the adaptions?
Well, I think too, a big part of it is coping, latching on, like finding your anchor in those storms, what you grab onto. I think a lot of people give up too early. When I say that, I mean, like maybe they turn to things that are not going to help them along the way, which is like maybe drinking or going out, staying out late or getting in the wrong crowds. And, obviously that can derail you. And so I think it was just more of that focusing in, okay, like rolling my sleeves up. Here I am. I've got these two little girls who rely on me. What are you going to do? It's almost like, I deal with life. Stuff is going to happen to all of us. We all are going to have these big knockdowns, throughout our life. It's not easy. None of us are getting out of here alive. Right. And so when that happens, I kind of create I don't want to say like a game show, but it's like, all right, you're up. You've got to get from here to there. Right. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? And not just, it sucks. Sometimes it's hard. I've crawled through it. It feels like coals and broken glass, but at the same time, it's almost like, like being a warrior. You have to figure out, well, I got to get from here to there. And these little girls are in tow. They are relying on me. I've got people watching me, people rooting for, maybe people who want to see you fail. Right. But I just turn all of it into fuel. Yeah. I get laser focused on where it is I want to go. I redesigned, like in my mind, okay, dust yourself off. What does this look like now moving forward? Letting go of the things that you thought were going to be, and figuring out, okay, what is my new path? Focusing in on it and charging at it and literally letting nothing take me off that path. If it does not entertain, like if it's anything that's outside of where I feel like I'm headed, if it's not serving that ultimate purpose, that ultimate destiny, I literally will not entertain it.
Yeah.
It's grabbing onto, I got super strong in my faith. I grabbed onto my health and wellness, right? That's my coping. I'm not drinking at night to take the edge off, so to speak. I'm having a healthy release of that pent up energy and the anxiety and stuff, that you experience when you're going through a really, really tough time, so that you have to keep your head clear, right? You have to stay strong in order for us to exercise our resiliency and really come out of these things with flying colors on the other side and better and have grown from it, is to do the work, right? To sit in it, whether it's journaling, the health and wellness, keeping your mind clear, being very aware of like what you're thinking about think about what you're thinking about. It's a mind game sometimes. It's a battlefield in there, and just staying positive and not entertaining, the negative, and just, you have to grab onto it. And I think if you entertain the things that are not serving you, it's very easy to muddy it up and get really lost in the fog, when you go through a hard time. So nobody taught me this. I think it's just a matter of the want and desire, the commitment to getting to where it is I know I need to go. And maybe it's the reason. Maybe I looked at these two beautiful little girls and they're helpless, right? And they're like, Mom, we got to, and I want to be successful. I wasn't going to be taken down right there. Got the fight in me. You're not taking me down. I'm going to do even better. And I thought, like, I'm awake now, right? Now you woke the dragon. Like, I come out fighting and you can't, I will not stop. So, I think that it's just a matter of like what somebody wants in life, like, do you want it to take you down? Do you want to give up? Don't give up. I know that there's so much more, and in coming out of the other end of it, I can say that I am so thankful that I went through that. There is no part of me that is bitter or wishes like it didn't happen. I'm not a victim, not like, well, this happened and I'm not going to blame. Like, I love that is my story and that happened, because it's made me better. I'm much further along. I'm much more who I want to be than I ever was. And so I embrace it. And I think once you can, and it's crazy to say that, knowing all that I went through, and I think people go through it when you're in the middle of it, somebody telling you like, you're embracing, you're going to love it. This is a favor. This is good. You're like, this is terrible. It's the worst thing I could ever imagine. But coming out on the other end of it is just, to me, it's like a beautiful thing. Really amazing that it happened, and I can be so appreciative of it, which I think is just, I love that about it. Like, I can truly sit here today and say, like, I'm thankful that I went through a complete storm that I thought, was like, feels like the end, but really I didn't see it, but it was the beginning of something way better.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah. It's amazing how those become if we allow it to do so, which you did, those painful moments that we have to, because you have to become somebody different. You have to become more to adapt, and who you come out on the other end was different than the person that went into that experience. And, but if you allow it, again, they're not just the greatest teachers, but they will become the greatest assets that eventually we have. But a lot of people don't allow for those experiences to happen. And hopefully everybody that's watching and listening to this is really took, what Brittany just shared with you guys to heart of, like spending time in solitude, allowing yourself to slow down and to reflect at a deep level. And it's like a lot of times I think the answers, I guess nobody knows, but this is my own belief and theory of, a lot of times the answers are within, but we got to lower the pressure and the noise, and we got to slow down so we can even be able to hear and listen to, those inner voices and those answers that are within. And, you got intentional about doing the work that allowed you, to have these experiences again, morph and, help you get, go through that expansion and so forth. And I love it. So shifting gears a little bit, I'm really curious because you go down this path, you're kicking ass in real estate, you continue to crush it. Really out of the gate, and I don't want to dismiss that the challenges that we all know what it takes to go out there and make six figures your first year in the business, or at least those that, have done that or experienced that or have seen it, of like you're pounding the pavement, you're busting your ass. Like you are grinding. But it's okay. From year number one, you're doing 6+ figures, start climbing to 7+ figures, and you're growing this team. Well, then you make a decision of, hey, I don't know, I don't know if the team thing's for me, and you decide to make that shift and that pivot of going to the model that you have right now, going back to doing more of your internal production, but restructuring it and doing it in an intelligent way where you're able to scale it, where you're making $1 million, still hitting those 7-figure years. It's a lot of people may not know this or have awareness of this. In our podcast, those are long-term listeners of this do, because we talk about numbers a lot, but very few team leaders that I meet that are doing over 100 million in production really even netting, it's like, okay, let's just say they're doing 150 million in production. I meet very few that are netting more than 400 grand a year. I mean, most netted more is individual agents. Yeah, right. So it's not always as lucrative as some people think. And I don't know if the pivot was financial or what it was, but let's talk about that of what led to that decision. And, I'm really curious in how you've been able to scale to the production that you're doing as an individual agent. So
in 2009 is when I hired my very first just administrative assistant, right? I had gone through we talked about it. I was on the salary job, went independent. That was 2005 all the way till 2009. I was like, I literally just need a lot of help here. I'm doing everything. It's kind of like you run into a doctor's office and you see the doctor like answer the phones and file the paperwork and get the charting and meet the patient. And I was doing it all. Like that's no way to run any kind of business. I didn't feel I was at the capacity that was maxed out. So I hired an assistant. In the very next year, that was 2009. In 2010. Now remember, what was 2010? The worst market, right? I have charts that show it was our worst year. My business was up 30% in 2010. I hired that assistant, my business was up 30%. And then in 2011, I was like, okay, now I need more help. I didn't have a direction. I didn't know. It was just kind of do what everybody else is doing. Everybody's like, hire a buyer's agent, right? And so I bring somebody in. I'm like, all right, here, you take all the buyers and I'll do the sellers, and just kind of made it up as I went. And frankly, I built it wrong. I backed myself into a corner. So it was many years of that. And then I kind of added a person. It wasn't until after my divorce where I really started to like bring in people after. I had that one buyer's agent for like 5 years, which is two of us. And then after my divorce, I was like, I got to really crank this up. I need to do some more supplemental income, right? So I started to bring in more people, and I was like coaching and mentoring them and helping them grow their businesses. And it was good for the time. It was what I needed at the time in my life, right? Because I wasn't producing or being in production as much. I had kind of pulled back and I was giving a lot away and just kind of on autopilot, if you will. But I had given too much. I didn't build it the right way. And so after that many years of it, it was like, I stopped, I look, and I'm like, this is not going to be profitable long-term going in this direction. It's like, I've kind of gone to the end of it. And then I'm either going to like partner up and give like half of all the, it came to a head. I was like, I didn't do this right. And then, so my visions for the future are not aligned with the model that I have currently built here. So I took it apart. I completely took it apart. It was like the hardest thing ever. I hired a coach. Sure, we all know who that is. It's John Cheplack. He's like the coach, right? And so with his help, he kind of helped me navigate through this. Like, what do I need to do? I'm taking this down. But what happens is I started to pull that away, and I'm like, what is my production going to look like? Now I have to really sell in order to build this back. So I went back to individual agent, solo essentially. And I then started to build a nice big administrative team around myself to help me with all the things. So I'm like, the team before, it's called a team. It's a bunch of people that are all contributing to maybe like the same bottom dollar, but they're not all helping the client in the capacity. Everybody has their own individual clients. Everybody's running different directions. You're really more diluted, if anything, because you're passing people around. And I didn't feel like it was a healthy way to sustain my business long-term. I'm young. I plan on doing this a long time. I've got 2 little girls that rely on me. I'm still a single mom here, right? I've got to make this happen. And so, I built a team of admin that all serve in some capacity, like transaction processor. We have general administration. We have a runner. We have full-time videographer. Now have ISA. And so having built it this way has allowed me to do more of that one-on-one, closest to the dollar activity, right? Working with buyers and sellers. If I need a contract written, I'm like, hey guys, okay, we're writing up Susie Q. Can y'all get that started for me? I'm able to just flip stuff. All of the things that are not just literally working with buyer and seller are flipped out. And I'm making so much more profit than I was giving the client away, right? Instead, now I'm tasking people and I'm keeping the client. I'm working with them. They want to work with me. And so they get to work with me. I'm there, and it kind of like build it a little bit like a doctor's office, if you will. right? I'm the physician. I have PAs and I have people answering the phones and filing the paperwork and the insurance and all that, and so to me, I think, and I network with some of the most amazing team leaders, broker owners, agents across the country, US and Canada, right? Being a part of John's group. These are my really good friends. I can tell you that they're all billions and billions and billions of dollars in production. They're all so successful, but not one of them have I ever seen, not one, two of them have the exact same model.
Yeah.
All of our business models are totally different and can build them differently. And I think it's just what works for you, right? I think that you're either a recruiter, if you're a team leader, you are recruiting. You have that attrition. You've got to keep up with it. And so your role is a totally different role than if you're wanting to sell and be an agent and build an administrative team. There's so many different ways you can do it. I like this way.
Yep.
It's really profitable. It's a lot less headache. And I'm not saying that I won't eventually scale. We've got a lot of website business and traffic that I'm not taking because I'm maxed out with my clients, but I'll plug people in place and help them build their businesses, I think eventually, but totally different model than I had before because I know so much more now than I did then,
Yeah. And you bring up such an amazing point we're so blessed to be in an industry where there's thousands of ways to create success. And, it's about identifying, okay, how do we want to build it? I know people now today that are, good friends of mine that are in the industry that do that. The world is their office. They're traveling the world with their families, even though they're still in production, working with buyers and sellers on a daily basis, but doing it, while traveling the world. And they have admin teams. They have, admin, showing specialist listings, so you're showing boots on the ground licensed agents that will, be the chauffeurs and all of that stuff, but they're doing the important element that they need to do, the highest to the money making activities you talked about. And, when you were sharing that experience and you brought up the medical office, my mind was going back to an interview that I heard with Dr. Oz, was interviewed with Success Magazine when Darren Hardy owned it. And Darren asked him, he's like, you got the Dr. Oz show, you're this big name, you're writing books, but you also do 300 open heart surgeries a year. How the hell do you do it? And he talked about, he's like, I know what the things are that I do well, that only I can do. And I hire amazing people around me. And he gives this example of when he's doing these surgeries. He goes, look, I have my surgical team. They spend hours prepping the patient. They get everything open. They get, right. So all I got to do is, I go in there, wash up, glove up, and everything's ready there for me to do my 2 minutes. And then when my 2 minutes are done, I do them to, perfection. Then they're instructed and they can close up. But because that's how I'm able to do so much. Is I am laser focused on what the thing or things are that I need to do that only I can do that lead to the result. I just build that A team around me. Yep. You've been able to do that, but also align that with what you enjoy doing. Because we get so much outside noise of, what you should build. I think so much of this ends up being out of ego. And a lot of times we adopt goals that really aren't our own, right? It's like, because everybody thinks that we need to build this or whatever we've been told, but it's we don't even maybe enjoy it. You're building it in a way that serves you and gives you energy that you enjoy.
Yeah. I, a couple of years ago too, after I started coaching with John, it was kind of, we all hiked him out. It was actually 2 years ago. It just came up on my memories. We went to Canada and we hiked a mountain together, and it was kind of an aha moment for me. I really started to be more interested to not only in being super successful in my business, but creating whole life. I hate the word balance, but it's where you're literally filling your cup in other areas, right? It's really important to me that I have great quality time with my little girls. It's really important to me that I spend those, 3 or 4 days a week in the gym with my trainer, because I can't operate at my highest level if I'm not top-notch condition and all of that. And so I am in the gym. I don't waver from that. I'm there at 5 a.m., 3-4 days a week with my personal trainer. I do take great vacations. I've done a lot of hiking. I travel with friends, and that's a piece for me that's really important. My quality time, earlier this year, I have a nanny that I hired too. So it's not just in my business realm, but I've hired help in other areas of my personal life so that I'm able to do more, to leverage myself. You're not going to really find me pushing around a grocery buggy in a grocery store. I order all that. It's online, shipped there, delivering to me. Right. And so just leveraging myself. But earlier this year, I was able to put my two littles on an airplane. I flew in first class and we went to Fort Lauderdale in March because that's like South Florida and it feels like summer. It's March, it's cold. And my oldest, her birthday is in March and she really wanted to go to the beach for her birthday. I'm like, everything around here is so cold. So we did. I mean, we just packed up and we went, and it's why I do what I'm doing, right? Is so that I can also have fun. I don't want to wait until I'm retired. I don't want to grind out in real estate and burn myself out. I'm like, this is not my life. I love what I do and I love my clients, but I also know where I want to be with it, right? What to the capacity that I want to do it. And then I'm able to still also focus on those other areas of my life to keep me whole, to keep me happy, right? So that I'm not burnt out. I'm having a lot of fun. I love what I do for work, but I'm also having fun in my personal life because of the way that I built this model. I'm not just grinding. Like I said, I have my admins are licensed, and I'll have those showing partners, my runner's license. If I'm out and somebody needs to see a house, and it's actually a beautiful thing. The way the market is now, it works really well for me because I think if it were more of a buyer's market where people are like, hey, I'm coming in on Saturday, I want to see these 14 houses. That might be a little more challenging for me to pass that on, right? Nobody's going to show 14 houses for me all day. But the way it is now, it's like one house hits and we just need to go pop in and see one. So I can easily ask my runner or licensed admin to go and open the door. And that's how I tell my clients, I'm like, hey, I can't be there on Saturday, but I don't want you to miss it. And so I'm going to have so-and-so open the door for you to get you into that house. Let me know what you think.
Yep.
Right. And so I'm able to leverage myself there when I'm out of town. I've got multiple cell phones. And I did that because my business phone, I got an iPad that stays at the office and two other phones, and they're all logged into the same iCloud account. So anybody in the world that's texting me or calling me about real estate, they see that. So there's a communication line that's like, if I'm out of town, I don't want a log jam here on my phone waiting on me to respond. All my team sees it. And so we're quick to respond. They'll get it. That client will get an email or a phone call or an answer, very promptly. And that's important. I mean, speed to action is key. We have to be responsive. Can't be a one-man show and get back to people days and days later. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. What's so cool about this too? I still hear this today, and I'm sure you probably do as well. But, it used to be more like when you and I first got in the industry of, listings is the name of the game, you got to list to last. And look, there used to be, some solid truth to that because of you could take on 50 listings, but you couldn't take on 50 buyers, at that time. But, with models like yours and with the models of, licensed, showing agents, and it's not like we, say that to the general public, just like we're not telling the general, calling an ISA to the general public. These are just internal terms that we use, but, but if they're articulated right and you've got the right processes and systems, it not just, it doesn't just allow us to be more efficient. It enhances the experience that you can deliver to the client, right? It makes their experience better, which is, should be all of our obsessions. And, but you can now scale up. I would argue that, you can scale the buy side much more effectively than the list side. And the reason why I say that is, if you look at repeat referral business lifetime value, because there's, deeper relationship that typically tends to happen on the buy side versus the sell side, right, that lifetime value, expands. But, you could be pumping out 8 buyer consults a day and taking on 8 buyer clients a day, right, like with that right kind of assembly line of assistants and admin. And it's just amazing of how we're seeing this industry and the different models that people are doing, to go out there and expand. And I'm curious with this, now that you've kind of had I shouldn't say a taste, a deep experience of the different worlds, if you will, of kind of building the traditional team versus, kind of this more like a team of specialists, if you will, in the way that you've done it. With where you're at right now, I know it's so tough to tell because things are always changing, but how do you, what do you, at least as of this moment, to the best of your ability, see that your expansion vision is for the future for you? Like what does that look like?
Yeah. So I do a heavy listing volume. I think probably that the scale tips to listings over buyers. I mean, we do very high-end marketing. I have a videographer that's on staff that works exclusively for our clients and things like that. I think eventually I will probably have in listing partners that will help me, just take on that volume. And our website is generating a ton of traffic. And so we do have a need, to train agents and put them in place to take on that type of business. So I will scale. I think I'll bring in, some licensed agents. I'm not going to ever give away like my personal clients, right? My sphere of influence, those repeat referrals. I'll still work my business. I think it's very important for us to stay in production. If we really want to have a, I say that because all the models are different. I mean, look at him. Chris Lindahl, he doesn't need to produce anything. He doesn't need to go sell somebody's house anywhere, right? But I think it just depends on the size that, that you're operating. And so I think that it's important. It's really profitable for me to stay in production. I'm still really young, so I will continue to do that. I'm going to add in pieces that just make each role, like transaction processor, I may end up having 2 or 3 instead of 1. So my scale will be the departments that I have that are helping serve the client, those will grow, and just the showing partners, be able to pop in. And just as a real team, though, I really feel like, if you just keep the idea of like the doctor's office where we have these patients and the patients are all belong to all of us in some capacity. Instead of everybody just having their own kind of separate businesses. Yeah.
It's and look, I don't personally think there's a right or wrong, right? There's, like I said earlier, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, 1,000 ways to create success. It's the right model for what each of us wants to go after, but you're right in that the traditional team has really kind of replaced what brokerages used to be. If you look at brokerages back in the, maybe, pre-2000s more, maybe even like 90 era, it used to be, brokerages were essentially like what teams are now today, where they're providing opportunities and so forth, but it's like a lot of these teams are just brokerages within the brokerages. And yeah, there's a heightened element of support and, staff and support, and they're giving, leads and depending on what their model looks like, but it's still that, they're still independent contractors and they, they're kind of sinking or swimming on their own, just with a higher level of support. And so then, what do you, almost 2 decades in this business, seen a lot of changes, with the changes that we're seeing now today. And I don't always like to focus, on the negative, but I'm one of these that, like it's like, some might say the glass half full, some might say it's half empty. It's like, all right, well, like, I'm just going to drink the water, right? Like, I'm just like, like kind of in between. And I try to look at both perspectives, the good, the bad, and make my best decision. But, what are the things with all the changes that we're seeing now, because I don't know if you're experiencing the same, but it seems like not just because of COVID, but like with just technology and so forth, it's like we're seeing in a year and as many changes as maybe we've seen in the last, at least for me, the last 16 years of this, journey. Like I'm seeing as many changes in a year as the other 16. And, with that, like what are the things that concern you the most of, potential changes that you're seeing or changes we may see in the future that concern you? And I don't mean like in necessarily a place of shutting down or concerning of, that we may become obsolete as agents or anything of that, of just that you're paying attention to and have an awareness so you can adapt and shift.
So, and I don't mean to say this to like take hope away from any like newbies in the business, but I do think that it is going to become more and more challenging for new agents to get their plane off the ground, so to speak, if they're not part of maybe like a team or something. So I think what's happened, there's a lot of things that's happened. What you just said, the big changes in a very short period of time, but a lot of agents over the last several years have been enlisting third-party companies and paying for leads and all that. And so now that's kind of like what they rely on for their business. Kind of dancing with the devil a little bit though, because once you're so dependent on that, and that's your source of business that you're either feeding a team or feeding yourself, when that source calls all the shots, that can really put you in a spot. So I think branding is huge. I think that the inventory issue that we are experiencing across the country makes it even more challenging. Like you said, like you have to have listings in this business. It's hard to get listings. Even the sellers people who want to sell aren't listing their homes because they got nowhere to go.
Yep.
Right? There's that. And so if you're not in it, if you're not like the person they know to call, if you're just like a new agent trying to get off the ground, I think trying to go at it on your own, thinking you're just going to be some superstar after a couple of years, I think that's, hey, maybe you can do it. Right. But I think getting in with somebody who already has an established business and be very, very aware of where they're getting that business from. Is it a healthy, like repeat referral, sphere of influence type branding? People are coming back because of the name, because they know the name of the person. Is that person just running their credit card, right? And buying leads and buying leads and buying leads? Because that also to me is a little scary. I've just seen a lot of shifts and changes. And I think that we will have, I think that you'll see a lot of people in this business falling off. I think that those statistics will continue to rise. Like in, years ago when you and I started, it was like, most new agents don't make it. Just a small percentage of them do. And it had nothing to do with the things that are happening now. Yeah. And so I'm seeing it. I would say I'm not worried personally, right, with my business, but I would be very scared to be a brand new agent trying to start right now if I didn't have mentors, maybe a team, somebody who is really helping me kind of under their wings. Just to go at it on your own. I mean, you may make a little side money, but I think that it'd be a lot harder to sustain. And I feel like that sounds really negative for new people. I don't mean to like crush hope. But the market is just so different than I think that it was even just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Well, we got to deal in realities and it's this whole, think positive. Like I'm all about that. Like I can't stand energy suck vampires. I don't want them around me, but at the same point, like, it's like breaking down SWOT analysis in your business. Yeah. Right. Like, okay, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? Like, how do you you got to be able to, assess the playing field and see where the holes are in the ship and so forth. And to your point, and those that are watching, listen, if maybe you don't understand maybe you haven't experienced what Brittany's talking about of being reliant on, things like third parties, right. And so forth is, I'll give an example. That was me at a period of time where I was about, 16 grand, 17 grand deep a month in just Zillow. Well, this was, this was a lot of years ago, but they used to pay per click. And back then, man, the ROI was massive. I was averaging about $17 a lead, and leads were, high quality. A conversion rate was about 10% at that time. And, but then they decided to switch their pay model from clicks to impressions. Now I was under contract with them. I didn't get a say in the decision, right? And overnight, my cost per lead went from like 17 to $50, right? And crumbled my ROI. And now I'm here in a contract, against $1 billion company. I'm trying to go fight and get out of this contract. And, right, it made some disruptions. And now here in my market here in Phoenix, Arizona, like you can't even buy Zillow leads anymore. They're a legit brokerage here, and you're paying either 30% or 35% referral fee. But then they have very high standards. You essentially have to be in the top like 1% of Zillow agents nationally. They run a tight ship. So, and they're starting to slowly roll out that model throughout the country. So if you get so reliant on a company like that, like they can pull that carpet out from your feet underneath you. And by no means am I saying if you're getting a great ROI not to do it, but don't make that your only source, right? So, It's diversifying that a little bit and making sure, because look, things will break, right? Things will get disrupted and so forth, and things happen. And so I'm curious then on so to flip that around, what are you most excited about for the future and the changes that you've been seeing, for this, for not just for the industry, but more specifically even for yourself and, your future within the industry?
Anytime I've ever seen like a huge shift in the market, I think the positive out of that is that the bigger fish get bigger. We take market share when this kind of stuff happens. When the market takes a turn or a shift, or there's some big disruptions or whatever, if you will, people will fall off. And then I think the fat fish get fatter. And so I think that it's a time for us to come in, up our branding, to really, get out there and push even harder to grow our businesses, the ones that have kind of been there. I am making some big moves like behind the scenes, just with our websites and things like that, so that we can stay relevant, and so that I will have enough to where I can scale and grow and be that landing place for, new agents at some point when I'm ready, and I think that it would be really healthy, with just all of the long-term experience in all the things that we've talked about, right? The resources that I provide, the coaching and mentorship, the business, the branding, just having been in the business, the longevity. I'm really optimistic about that. I think that this inventory issue is going to be an issue for years. I just don't think we have enough. I mean, everything that I've read and studied, it's like, over the last decade, which was after that big '08 crash, they just didn't build enough. I don't think we're keeping up with population growth. It was prior to that, it was 10 million plus homes per decade, right? And then this last one, we were under like 6.5 million. Then you have the COVID, and you had the low interest rates, and you had, supplies. It's all contributing to this low inventory factor. I think it's a problem. I know it's a problem. I know I'd be selling a lot more houses right now. I've got people lined up, ready to buy stuff, ready to sell their homes, but it's like they can't because there's just not anything to pick from, right? So I think that inventory issue also kind of keeps things in check in terms of, the agents and their successes and who's going to be successful.
Yeah.
It's just, a lot of people are getting into the business, but don't realize, like, yes, it's a great market, but at the same time, it is a fight. There's so much, it's just, right? It's a brawl out there. People are trying to get houses under contract, and there's more agents than there are houses for sale.
Yep. So, true that. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It used to be, I don't know, I'd have to put some more deep thought into it, but like maybe up to, 5 years ago is maybe my best guess, at least for my observation in the industry. But it used to be, man, like, dude, if you just worked your ass off, served your clients at a high level, worked your ass off, and yeah, you got to make some bold moves, but like you could go out there and, build a successful team and be a successful agent, by just working your ass off and, develop a good reputation. The basic things that, people think of when it comes to sales and real estate, but anymore, like that's not enough. Like that's almost the ante just to survive. It's like, if you are not a brilliant operator, if you are not good at systems, processes, if you aren't, a master at marketing, which is a lot of different facets for that, but it's like, you got to not just have that grit and that perseverance and be willing to work your freaking ass off and, being obsessed with the client experience, but you got to be a freaking brilliant operator. Yeah. And if you're not, it's like, it's going to be a challenge. But the other cool thing about that is there's more opportunities today to plug into, like when you first jumped in, like you had an amazing opportunity with that developer. But there wasn't on the traditional side of real estate, there wasn't, the teams at that point weren't the thing that they are now, so you and I we couldn't necessarily mentor in the same way as we could now today. If we were getting into business today with some of these amazing, teams out there and, like to be mentored, your 20-year-old self to jump in and be mentored by you now today, so there's also, so many great opportunities for those to be mentored. If they can give up that ego thing of I think
if they did the math, they have no idea. I think that's the beautiful thing about the whole team thing is because if if I were a brand new agent today, that's the first place I'm going.
Yep.
Because I know what I know. They don't know what they don't know. But the overhead to like stay in this business, to start in this business, to build that branding, that recognition, that to get that plane off the ground, that is so massive. When you just walk in and start taking leads, if you're on a team, you don't have the overhead, you just put people in the car and like write contracts and you make money. At the end of the day, you might be making less because your split's less than like the 100% and the cappers and all that, or wherever you're going if you're by yourself. But the money that those people are spending to get that, these buyer's agents on these teams are making more. They're very profitable when you think of it. They might only be making 40%, 50%, but they're not paying for all of the, and I say they're not paying for it. They kind of are, right? But with their side of it, they're investing back into the company, but there's no brain power there. They don't have to think of it. They don't have to figure out like, what's our next move? How do we buy more leads? Where are we plugging? They just work and they just sell the houses. It's just, to me, that's like the easiest thing. And if they can put their ego aside and, they realize they're not making 100% of their commission check. We aren't either. Those big team leaders and operators, we don't keep 100%. Come on. We don't keep that. It goes back into the business. We're probably making less money than the people that, we employ. So, at some point. So I don't know. I think if I was brand new, I would be chasing a team right now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it reminds me of, the great Jim Rohn's, not just quote, but he just, would just beat this to death of, the wrong question is, what am I getting from this? The right question is, who am I becoming from this? So, anybody that's just focused on the splits, like if that's the focus, that's the driving factor, and that's what is going to be like your decision basis when you start out on this gate. Yeah. You probably should just stay in corporate America, right? And I'm not saying that of, being a team leader and trying to get people in my team, but it's, I'm saying it from a place of love and caring about this industry of because that's the least of it. Whether you make more or less or whatever, it's dude, you're developing the right habits. You're, if I was brand new and I could, jump on like on your team, Brittany, and learn and let's just say be mentored by you for 2 years. Well, in 2 years, I was able to, if I do this right and take advantage of having access to your brain, I'm able to, in 2 years, potentially learn what you've learned in 18, right? It's like, who are you becoming? What are the skill sets that you're becoming? Who, if you got to give up a couple $100,000 over those, few years experience or whatever, who cares, right? Like those, that could propel you to be making millions in the future as of who you become. It's, I got asked recently, what do you, if you could do it over different, like, what would you do? Not just real estate, but it was like, instead of going to college, I'm like, man, if I knew what I knew now at 18, I would have went to, pick whoever it is, but find, your favorite serial entrepreneur or massively successful entrepreneur. And I would have just asked if I could exchange 4 years of my life, work for them for 40 hours a week, 100% for free. And the reason it'd only be 40, so I could go work another 40 because I'd have bills to pay. Yeah. Right. But just to be able to be mentored and shadowed, whatever, that 4 years of just that, apprenticeship under, a billionaire or whatever, that could look like, they're just invaluable. You can't put a price tag on it.
The thing I always come back to as well is that all of the best athletes have a coach, right? They have a trainer. They have those people right there on the sidelines. They're not out there doing this stuff on their own. They're not out there, breaking records. It's a team of people, but they have those coaches and mentors. And so whenever I had people, I've seen people get coached and you hear the question a lot. I think it's maybe in their defense, a little side of ignorance, but they're like, well, if I look back over the last year, I've been paying all this money for coaching or whatever. And what has that person really done for me? It's immeasurable. Because you don't remember whenever, you're driving the bus, but that person's standing over your shoulder and saying, okay, up here, there's a stop sign. You take a left. Yep. Okay. Over here, you're going to cross over this way and then you're going to take a right. That person is helping you drive, telling you where you need to go, how to get there. But at the end of it, you get amnesia. You got there and you're on the bus. You're like, well, I drove the bus here. I did the work. So people forget, like, you can go so much further if you have that coach or that mentor, that trainer right there alongside you, that accountability partner. That is so tremendous. If somebody wants to be successful in this business, one of the first things, so it was hiring the leverage, right? Leverage is key. But the other thing for me was, hands down, I would not be where I am today in my business had I not had a coach.
Yep.
Period.
Yeah. It's the ultimate time hack, right? I always go back to Picasso's quote of good artists copy, great artists steal, right? So like in the beginning, it wasn't this, but what I've learned over the years of this, of like, okay, once I realize what I need to do, my next question is, all right, like who do you like the next question is who, right? Like who's doing this? Who can I go model after that's already figured this out where I don't have to? It's like, okay, like one of my mentors that, I'm just obsessed with his work is Dan Kennedy, right? Arguably the greatest direct response marketer and copywriter on the planet today.
Yeah.
All right. Well, he's got, I don't know, 5 decades, 6, right, of this experience. Okay. Well, if I can devote a year or 2 years, whatever of my life, investing in all of his, whatever, and learning everything that he's learned in that experience, I just saved the other 49 years of my, right? Like it's that ultimate hack, and it saves you from going down the wrong road when you know that right road to go down. And it's so powerful. So one last question for you, Brittany. But before we jump into this last question, for those that are watching and listening, if they want to continue following you on this success journey, or maybe they're in your area and want to talk to you about opportunities that you're in your site, your amazing team, or we're agents all over, I mean, majority U.S. and Canada here, but we, I look at our demographics and our downloads, and sometimes countries that I had never even heard of, some agents all over. If they have a referral for your area or what are the best ways to follow you, to get in touch with you and do all of that?
Yeah, I'm most active on Facebook and Instagram. So my Facebook is Facebook.com/Pino and Associates. That's my business page. I do a lot of stories there kind of throughout the day, kind of see what that looks like. My personal Facebook page too, I'm an open book. It's a public facing page. So there. And then my Instagram is, it's Brittany Pino. And then I have my business one as well. So it's Pino and Associates.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. And you guys are watching, listen, regardless of what platform that you're at, whether it's iTunes, Shopify, YouTube, wherever you're at, if you just scroll below, we'll have all Brittany's information, links to all our social handles to make it super easy on you guys where you can just click connect. And so if you just scroll below, you'll see that. All right. So last question for you. And when I ask this, it's not from wishing things were different, right? We can't go back and change the past. Plus all the things that have taken place in the past have allowed you to become who you become today, right? So it's not about changing the past, but it's about, okay, Brittany today, throughout this, 18 years of experience, if you could go back right now today and it's like you're in the Back to the Future DeLorean and your 20-year-old self is sitting here. Now that DeLorean pops up, Brittany, today, and you're able to talk to your 20-year-old self and, give yourself like 2 pieces of advice that you think would have, been really powerful to know. What would those couple pieces of advice be?
So I think that I've experienced the most growth as looking back is when I have like really gone after, faced a fear, something that I was most scared to do, the thing that you almost like avoid doing. Right. And so I think I would tell myself that, to have courage and to do the things that, in your heart you need to do. Don't avoid it. Like just go right at it, no matter how scary it may seem. So that's definitely number one. I don't know that if it would or wouldn't have changed a lot. I can go back and think of all the times that I faced a fear, and I know that was like, I needed to do that and had made a huge impact in like where I am today versus shying away from it. I think a lot of people do. I think that's the difference between an average person and like an elite performer is literally just the choices that they're making, choosing to face this fear, to take that action, to take that calculated risk, if you will, to just make the jump. Whereas some people might, be scared and just stay sitting on their rock. And I feel like that has been a catalyst for me, is to just face fear. I don't know, looking back, if there's something else that I would have done a whole lot different. I mean, that's a kind of a deep question to finish off with, Josh. But,
yeah.
I mean, it's just, gosh, I don't know that I have any really regrets. I just would say that to myself or to anybody, I know that the biggest impacts are when I've seen the best growth and the most exhilarating, life-changing things happen is when I have faced those fears, doing those things like where you're just like, I'm so scared to do this. I know this is what I need to do, whether it's hiring a first assistant or buying a house after you quit a job or, a relationship you have to walk away from or just whatever it is. There's just so many big things. I think you get to that point, you're at the edge and you're like, some people stay there just too long, and I've been at those edges like for longer than probably I should. Yeah. So I would just say, jump, do it.
Yeah, love it. Such powerful stuff. And, Brittany, I know how busy you are and the fact that you took time out of busy day to be here with us and, share your journey and share all this amazing experience and advice with us. I mean, it truly means a lot to all of us and has been such an honor. And I just want to, for myself personally, as well as, on behalf of, all those that are watching and listening, it's just, again, thank you so much for being here. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much, Josh, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. Those watching and listening, as always, truly appreciate you guys being here. Truly appreciate your support. Keep up the amazing work. Keep kicking ass, and we'll see you next time. Peace. I hope you enjoyed this GSD Mode podcast episode. Now make sure you get shit done and smash that subscribe button now.